you do a beautiful job in explaining aging as damage accumulation and something that's increasing your risk of death with the years to come. I'd love it if you could elaborate on that point and just explain aging to someone who's probably never thought about it in terms of aging as a disease.
So sure, I think like the rusting car is a good way to think about it. If you leave a car out in the field for long enough, it will rust and it will fall apart. And because a car is kind of complicated in its structure, as it rusts, it could fall apart in all sorts of different ways. Well, will the roof cave in first? Will the door fall off? Any one of those things stops it being a viable car to drive around in. But it's very unclear as to which of those things will happen first. Rust is very, very simple. It's just a very simple little chemical process. But if you start rusting a complicated piece of metal, it will fall apart in complicated ways. And aging, if you want to think of it very, very simply, it's just a set of rusts. We rust. If you want to take the analogy, we accumulate sort of damage and dysfunction as a result of very simple processes that go wrong and create problems that accumulate over time. And aging is really only complicated because we are complicated. If you create a simple form of damage in a complicated thing, like a person, then the person will fall apart in all sorts of weird and strange ways, and everyone falls apart a little bit the same, but a little bit differently. Different things happen earlier. Some people get cardiovascular disease, some people get cancer, some people get neurodegenerative disease, and that's what kills them first. But it's all the result of the same underlying simple processes that are causing damage. And we evolved this way simply because evolution really wants you to succeed early in life. The organisms that win the evolutionary battle for who gets to survive are the ones that reproduce the earliest they could within the constraints of your environment. And therefore, evolution likes to front load. You get systems that are made for short-term use, like your immune system. Your immune system works great out of the gate. Your adaptive immune system, the one that remembers problems it encounters, but it keeps having to assign space to its memory, and eventually it'll run out. And that's kind of a problem. It never evolved to carry around for the long term because evolution only really cares about, did you successfully have offspring before you were 30, which is roughly what your grandparents care about too. But that's the way it goes. So yes, aging is just damage, and it's very simple in comparison to what the damage does, which is very complicated. So when you look at the research community struggling to try to explain little details about aging, how it actually works all the way along, the reason that they're struggling is because we still don't fully understand human cellular metabolism in all of its details. So it's rather hard to explain what happens in a complex system if you don't actually understand the system fully. And researchers write grants for things they can write papers on. So they're very interested in explaining aging, but we don't really need to explain aging. We actually have a pretty good understanding of what these fundamental forms of damage are, a good enough understanding to go out and try to fix them. And frankly, the best way to figure out, what does aging do while it moves forward in this incredibly complicated system is to take an animal where something hasn't been fixed and take an animal where something has been repaired or fixed and see what the differences are. And we do that for things like senescent cell clearance, where senescent cells accumulate with age and they spit out all sorts of gunk and inflammatory signals and mess up your body actively. And animals in which you get rid of senescent cells have quite profound rejuvenation. A lot of their bodily systems are given leave to go back and try and get themselves back to a normal operating status, and that can be really quite impressive. Let's, for example, take cardiac hypertrophy. When you get old, your heart starts to expand, your heart muscle expands and weakens at the same time, and it contributes to heart failure. And that's a pretty horrible thing. And you wouldn't think that would actually reverse. But if you go clear senescent cells in rats, yes, it does. It actually, the hypertrophy of the heart actually starts to reverse, and the heart goes back to the way it should be and pumps more strongly. So there's tremendous opportunity here just by looking at comparatively simple forms of damage in the body and focusing on that, and leaving the question of, okay, great, but how does this damage really actually then cause all sorts of problems in your body over time? Leave that as a secondary question. Go fix the damage first. It will make it so much easier to figure out, if you really want to know at that point what happens afterwards. But equally, tuberculosis is pretty much a solved problem. Does anybody out there really, really care about how tuberculosis progresses exactly in the body beyond what we already know? Ditto for smallpox. Do we really want to be out there researching exactly how smallpox, causes harm and dysfunction? No, nobody cares, because smallpox is cured and done with. And the same will be true of tuberculosis one day. The focus needs to be on fixing the causes.